Will you eat?
Well, go ahead.
All right, it smells good. I'll get some later. Okay, well, welcome everybody to the first community information sharing session for the Little Current Swing Bridge. Can everybody hear me okay? So just a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, in terms of emergency exits, there's two that I am aware of, so probably the door that you came in here, and then there is another exit over here in the corner if we need to evacuate the building, and the washrooms are right here. The second housekeeping item is just to let everybody know that this is being live streamed, so it is live and it will be recorded. So just be aware of that, and also the request is when we get into, if there's questions later at the end, to speak loudly so that we can pick it up on the live stream. Okay, so my name is Greg Cook. I am with Stantec, and we've been retained by the ministry to undertake this study. I am joined by a few colleagues, so maybe I'll just ask them to introduce themselves as well. So over.
Hi, I'm Melissa Delfino. I'm the project manager for the MTO for this project.
I'm Susan Herman. I work with the property section at the Ministry of Transportation as well.
I just finished an evening or something. Dwayne from Module, I'm an Indigenous Liaison Specialist with MPO.
And Diana Hadley, Senior Planner and Communications Coordinator, Stantec.
Okay, so we do want to accomplish a couple of things this evening. First of all, we're going to introduce the study and the project team, provide an overview of the study process, spend a little bit of time talking about the problems and opportunities, why are we doing this study, present and seek input on the alternatives to the undertaking, so we'll talk about those a little bit more. Review and seek input on the study area environment, and then respond to your questions and discuss any issues, comments, or concerns you may have. And then finally, we'll wrap up and talk about different ways to participate in the study. Okay, so first of all, the study purpose. As I mentioned, the Ministry of Transportation has retained Stantec to undertake what we call a planning, preliminary design, and environmental assessment study for the Highway 6 Little Current Swing Bridge. Why are we doing this? Well, the existing bridge requires extensive and ongoing maintenance and is nearing the end of its service life. So what we want to achieve at the end of this study is to identify a recommended plan to address the current transportation needs at the bridge crossing. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process that we're following. So the study is being carried out under the requirements of what we call the Class Environmental Assessment for Transportation Facilities. So this is basically a pre-approved document that describes how to, or prescribes. So again, these are the big picture statements that address or answer the question, why are we doing this study? And then also during this phase of the study, we are identifying alternatives to the undertaking. So we're starting to look at potential solutions, and we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. The next phase of the study will be the planning phase. So we're just kind of nearing the end of this transportation needs assessment phase now. But then the next phase is the planning phase, and that will start with publishing a document that we call a study design report. So that will kind of confirm the first phase of the study and provide a blueprint for the rest of the study. During that planning phase, we'll develop more detailed planning alternatives. We will evaluate the planning alternatives, so we'll establish a set of criteria and go through an evaluation process. And then at the end of that phase, we'll select a preferred alternative. Once we've done that, we'll move into the preliminary design phase, where we will develop the recommended plan in more detail and identify any environmental impacts and mitigation that are required for the proposed plan. Then we move into the documentation and environmental clearance phase, and that's where we publish what we call a Transportation Environmental Study Report, which is basically a report that includes everything or documents the entire study from beginning to end, including those previous phases. So that will be available for a 30-day public review period. And then at the end of the 30-day review period, if there's no objections, then we will obtain environmental clearance to proceed to the next phase of the study, or the future phases. And that would be detailed design, where the ministry will prepare contract documents and specifications, start acquiring property, relocate any utilities that need to be relocated, and then ultimately construction. So we're at the very early stages of this planning study. So a little bit of background about the bridge. You folks probably know more about it than we do. It was constructed back in 1913 as a rail bridge initially. It's a 5-span structure. It's just the center 2 spans that swing, which make it a swing bridge. In 1946, it was modified to allow motor vehicles. So from 1946, moving forward, it was actually a shared facility, so rail and automobiles. In 1980, the railway tracks were removed, and at that time, the Ministry of Transportation assumed ownership of the bridge. So from 1980 on, it became exclusively a road bridge to carry Highway 6 across the North Channel. So there is an existing sidewalk on one side, and just an interesting fact is that it is listed on the Ontario Heritage Bridge list. This next slide just shows the study area. So the existing bridge crosses the North Channel. So we're really focused on this crossing. We're not looking at new crossings or new connections between Manitoulin Island and the mainland. So we're strictly looking at the transportation needs in the vicinity of the existing crossing. So this blue area identifies, a rough boundary of where we're looking for alternative crossing locations. So I mentioned the problems and opportunities. So these are really the kind of the overarching statements that talk about why we're doing the study. So there are a few problems with the existing bridge. So the existing bridge, it does provide year-round access. It's the only kind of permanent road connection, but it is a single-lane roadway. So there are delays associated with that single-lane traffic. Currently in the summer months, road access is generally not available for 15 minutes of each daylight hour to allow boat access along the North Channel. So in addition to the delays caused by the single lane of the bridge, there are additional delays when the bridge swings open every hour to allow boats to move up the channel. And probably most importantly, the existing bridge is nearing the end of its service life and will require extensive and ongoing maintenance or replacement. So that's really the driver behind this, is the age of the bridge and the condition and the ongoing maintenance costs. So there are several opportunities as part of this study. So there are opportunities to improve traffic operations, improve access for all users between the island and the mainland. So all users being, vehicles, automobiles, pedestrians, bicycles, emergency services. So there's an opportunity to improve access for all. And of course, there are opportunities to reduce the operating and maintenance costs, and ultimately improve the reliability of this crossing. So as part of this study, we are looking at alternatives, and we look at a broad range of alternatives, and we look at kind of different levels of alternatives. So the first step is to identify alternatives to the undertaking, and these are the kind of the big picture alternatives to address these problems. So that's really the focus of the first part of the study, and we'll talk about those in a minute. And then as we move further on in the study, then we will get more detailed and look at more detailed alternatives. And those are all called alternative methods. So the first level of alternatives that we look at are what we call alternatives to the undertaking. So again, just to recap, the problems, there are some obvious problems with the existing bridge, namely being its age, and its ongoing maintenance costs. So what are the big picture alternatives to address this problem? And that's what we kind of answer with these alternatives. So the first alternative that we're looking at is do nothing. So as part of the Class EA, we're always required to look at the do nothing option. And by do nothing, we don't just mean kind of let the bridge, fall apart. What we mean by do nothing is really status quo. So maintain the existing bridge, continue to provide the ongoing maintenance and repairs that are required to keep this as a safe crossing. So do nothing really means continue with the ongoing maintenance of the bridge as required. The second kind of big picture alternative that we're looking at is replacing the bridge with a ferry. The ferry would carry traffic between Rhode Island and Manitoulin Island. We should point out that it's not just a ferry, it would also require docking terminals as well to accommodate loading and unloading of vehicles. The third kind of big picture alternative is replace the existing bridge with a 2-lane tunnel. So this would be a tunnel under the channel. This will provide year-round road access under the channel, somewhere in the vicinity of the study area. Should note that due to the depth of that crossing required, that to accommodate the approaches, it could not be, the tunnel could not be at the exact same location as the existing bridge. It would have to be shifted one way or the other to allow room basically to accommodate the approaches to the tunnel. The fourth alternative that we're looking at is again replacing the existing swing bridge with a new movable bridge. So again, it would be a 2-lane structure with accommodation for pedestrians, vehicles. So we're saying a movable bridge, so it could be a swing bridge, it could be any type of movable bridge. It could be a lift bridge, or it could be what we call fast fuel bridge, where you have sections that pivot and lift. So that alternative is to replace the existing bridge with another movable bridge, and that could be in the pretty close to where the existing bridge is located. And then the final alternative that we're looking at is, again, replace the swing bridge with a 2-lane fixed bridge. And what we mean by a fixed bridge is, so not movable, it would have to be high enough to accommodate the boat traffic underneath. So it would require fairly long approaches, again, to get the elevation up and over the channel so that the majority of boat traffic could cross under the bridge. So again, because of the approach grades, to get up and over the channel, it would have to be located a little bit further away from the existing bridge. So as part of this study, there are lots of different background studies going on and investigations that all kind of feed into this study. and help us make decisions about potential impacts and help us evaluate different alternatives. So this slide just talks a little bit about some of the background studies that are ongoing as part of this study. So we kind of break them into three baskets. There's engineering studies, there's natural environment studies, and there's socioeconomic studies. So under engineering, we look at traffic and safety, we look at bridge engineering, foundation engineering, drainage and hydrology, highway engineering, and electrical engineering. So that's the very technical pieces that we're looking at. So not only are we looking at the existing bridge, but also the engineering side of the different types of alternatives, whether it be a lift bridge or a movable bridge or a fixed bridge. Under natural environment, we do consider we do have several different studies underway. So terrestrial ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems, so fish and fish habitat, species at risk. So again, we do background information so that we have a good picture of what the existing conditions are, so that when we look at different alternatives, we can compare the alternatives and compare the potential environmental impacts. And then finally, the socioeconomic impacts. So we look at heritage, archaeology, business impacts, and noise and air quality. So again, we do kind of the background baseline studies, and then we look at the alternatives and what are the potential impacts associated with the alternatives, and that helps us evaluate and select.
You said on Friday.
So in terms of the schedule, these are kind of the highlights of the schedule. So our first round of public meetings and community information sharing sessions started in August, and they're just wrapping up now. And that kind of lines up with the first phase of the study. Then we will have the study design report that kind of outlines the blueprint for the study. So that will be available for a 30-day public review in the coming weeks. Then the next major milestone is the second round of public meetings and community meetings, and that will happen next summer. So that's where we will present more detailed alternatives. And then the next major milestone after that is the summer of 2020, and that's where we'll come back and present the preferred plan. So, each one of these kind of major milestones, we start with kind of these big picture alternatives, and the next round of public meetings next summer, we look at more detailed alternatives, and then the third round in the summer of 2020, we present the preferred plan. And then the environmental study report will be available for a 30-day public review period in the fall of 2020. So it's quite a long schedule, provides lots of opportunity for input and feedback and public meetings along the way. So this ends the presentation portion of the meeting. We do have boards set up around the room. So these are pretty much, we touched on them in the presentation, but there is some additional information on these boards that you can walk up to the boards and take a closer look at. And we will be here as well to answer questions. Once you've had a look at the information, either here or online, there is a project website, www.swingbridge.study. You can fill out comment sheets and send them in. I guess Noella has volunteered to collect them. So you can leave them here, leave them with Noella. You can send comments in to the project email, which is projectteam@swingbridgestudy.ca, or you can mail your comments in as well. So that is the end of the formal presentation. We can certainly take a couple of minutes for questions.
Randy, I was wondering, did you get a chance to kind of get some high-level overview on the 5 options for that?
Yeah,
Do
we
you think you could do
can
that?
spend a little bit more time on that. So the alternatives to the undertaking that we talked about, there is some more detailed information on the boards. And that additional information is really advantages and disadvantages. So we haven't gone through a full evaluation yet, but we have identified some of the advantages and disadvantages. So again, this board here, the do nothing option, it does, it's really the status quo. So it does provide year-round road access, maintains the existing traffic operations, so it would maintain the existing single lane configuration. It does maintain emergency response and evacuation access, and it maintains the 15-minute-per-hour boat access, so no change. Some of the disadvantages with do nothing are it does require extensive and ongoing maintenance and operation or operating costs. Reliability is a bit of a concern. So again, because it's an old bridge, it could break down at any time. It's kind of like driving an old car. So there is a concern from the ministry that that bridge could open and get stuck, and then significantly affect access. And the challenge with this type of bridge is because the parts are so old that everything has to be custom fabricated, which takes time. So there is a bit of a risk that mechanical breakdown causing significant delays and access issues. And the other negative is it doesn't really provide a permanent long-term solution. So the bridge is only going to last so long, so it doesn't provide the solution for the point where it becomes no longer feasible to maintain that bridge. You have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned in the presentation that the bridge is getting near its life.
The end of its service life.
Yeah,
I think we
service
used,
life.
Yeah.
How many more years is that? Has it been determined how many more years is actually feasible for service life for that?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, typically bridges are designed for 75 years nowadays, like a new bridge is. So we kind of call 75 years is its service life. So this is well beyond it. It's over 100. Mm-hmm. So it's really on borrowed time, but it's hard to tell. You can always fix it. You can always try and fix it.
But you don't have a number though as to is it 20 years, 50 years?
No, we don't really. It's really kind of, the question is the next time, there's a major mechanical failure, at what point is the industry going to stop throwing
How
money
about
at it?
the structural foundation in the water? How is that?
Yeah, there's no imminent issues. I mean, it is inspected every 2 years. So there is an inspection that was recently done over the past summer. So we haven't looked at that yet, but there's nothing, there's no immediate safety concerns. There's no immediate issues. So, I mean, it is still a safe crossing. It's just, it's getting to the point where, it is rusting. There are perforations. There are ongoing repairs required. It's hard to tell how long it's going to last if you keep kind of patching and repairing, but ultimately it will have to be replaced at some point in time. The next option, replace with the ferry. In terms of positives, it does provide vehicle access. It does provide unrestricted boat access, but there are obviously some negatives associated with it. So it would increase traffic delays. It's questionable whether or not a ferry could actually accommodate the traffic demand without causing significant delay. Again, it does require ongoing maintenance. To run a ferry is costly. The cost of a ferry is actually quite expensive, and it requires large docking facilities as well. So, in addition to the ferry, it requires some additional infrastructure. The tunnel provides year-round access. It would significantly improve traffic operations and reduce traffic delay. It would improve emergency response and evacuation access. It provides unrestricted boat access. On the negative side, as I mentioned, because of the approaches, it would require a bit of a realignment to accommodate the approach grades to get under the tunnel, or under the channel. And the issue with the tunnel is it's typically very expensive compared to a bridge. So just in terms of some ballpark costs, we haven't got into the costs in a lot of detail, but a tunnel of this length, was probably somewhere between $250 to $300 million. But that would be, we'd have to do some more work on engineering work on that to confirm that number. The fourth alternative, replace with a movable bridge. So that would be a 2-lane bridge. So a lot of the same positives as a tunnel. So it provides year-round road access, improves traffic operations and reduces delays, maintains emergency response and evacuation access, maintains the current boat access. So it would be, again, probably the 15 minutes of every hour. It would be a modern movable bridge, so it would be lower operating costs than the existing bridge, and easier to repair. In terms of cost, less expensive than a tunnel, obviously. We estimate that it would be in the range of 25 to 50 million for a new movable bridge. And then finally, the fixed bridge. So this is the high-level bridge over the channel. Again, similar positives or advantages. Provides year-round road access, improves traffic operations, reduces traffic delays, improves emergency response and evacuation access. Similar to the tunnel, provides unrestricted boat access, so boats can move freely under the bridge. And then the cost for this falls between kind of the movable bridge and the tunnel option. So we estimate that the fixed bridge would be in the $50 to $100 million range. So again, just to recap, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, and then 250 to 300 million for the tunnel. So that's kind of the high level advantages and disadvantages. We are doing, evaluation of these alternatives to the undertaking as we wrap up this phase of the study. And what we are proposing to do is eliminate some of these from further consideration and carry a few forward for the more detailed alternative development. So that will be the next phase of the study. Any other questions?
The alternatives, other than do nothing, is there any talk of keeping the bridge as it is and build the tunnel somewhere else, or build the movable bridge somewhere else? So to keep that as a historic site, for example? Or
Yeah.
is it being talked of tearing down and replacing it totally?
Well, that would kind of be a parallel part of this study, is depending on which options we move forward with here, we'll also have to look at what we would do with the existing bridge. So for example, if we carry forward, a tunnel option, then we'll also have to take a look at, well, what does that mean for the existing bridge? So that will be part of the study. And as part of that, we have to do some additional specific studies about that bridge. So cultural heritage evaluation report and a cultural heritage assessment report to basically determine the value of that, the cultural value of that bridge. And then there's a bit of a process that we would have to go through. It's determined to be a provincial heritage structure, then there's a process that we have to go through as part of that as well. Any question here?
In the last two options, how limited are you in the scope as to where that can happen in the current project area?
Yeah, so if there was like a high-level bridge or a tunnel,
Yeah.
uh,
I
where
don't think a
would-
tunnel would be feasible, but if it was to go with two last two alternatives of a open log bridge kind of swing and the main bridge itself.
Yeah, so if
overpass.
it's a movable bridge, so which is alternative 4 there, it can be relatively close to the existing bridge. It'd just be, probably have to be outside of the area where it swings. So
Yeah, I was just wondering because there's that pile of, I don't know what that stuff from the rail line on the west side of that transformer station. Hydro generators or
Go
whatever.
over here.
No, on the corner there. It's under a tarp.
Oh, that's up here.
Yeah, yeah. That's all that stuff, so I don't know how that's gonna be incorporated into the project area. It might have a concern there regarding all that material that's underneath there. It's all
Yeah.
contaminated.
Yeah. So for the high level bridge alternative, you're right. Like we may have to be over here somewhere, and swing in. Again, to get the distance to to get up and over the channel, might have to come off this curve on an angle and then swing in this way. So we'd be out in here somewhere.
Yeah, then you have to look at also the hydro lines there as well.
Yeah. So there's hydro there. There's this contaminated material here as well. So those are all part of the background studies that we're doing as part of this study. And yeah, if we were looking at something that impacted this, then we would have to come up with some answers as to what we would do with that as well.
Yeah.
Having the movable bridge, drawbridge, would be my ideal. Because it's like a 15-minute delay. How long we've been dealing with that now. And if we continue to deal with that, I think it is nice seeing the boats sitting out in the channel as you're crossing. But having the 2-lane, just speed traffic up too.
Yeah. So if you had the 2-lane, you would eliminate the delays, just waiting for traffic to go back and forth. And then on the immovable bridge alternative. So this is what you're referring to, like a drawbridge. Yeah. So that's called I guess that would be called a double bascule is what it's technically called. So there could be different types of, there will be different types of movable bridges that we will look at. So that type of bridge, a lift bridge that just kind of vertically moves up and down. We'll also look at a swing bridge. But we will look at different types of movable bridges, and we'll look at kind of what's been constructed, elsewhere, across North America and Europe for that matter, more recently.
Have they talked about like the existing bridge, like keeping that as a heritage icon? Like maybe moving it onto Gold Island and leaving it there?
Yeah, so there could be some alternatives. Whether it stays where it is, or whether it gets moved somewhere, or whether it gets moved to a park somewhere. I mean, those are all things that we'll have to take a look at. We did hear from the first public meetings. We had some, the boating community came out to the first public meeting. There was some concern with leaving it in the channel because it's just, it's an obstacle. So we did hear that comment at the first meeting, that they would rather not have it in the middle of the channel, especially if it's something like, this type of bridge that swings open, which kind of forces everybody into the middle, and then you're kind of lined up with where the existing bridge is sitting. So we'll have to look at that as well. Now, we also heard on, the existing swing bridge, it creates basically, two channels, which is, again, we heard is a little bit narrow for some of the bigger boats, especially the cruise ship that come through there is a little tight. I think there was somebody said there was a big cruise ship that came through there, that it only had, a couple of feet on either side to get through there. And, this was a bit of a challenge for the pilot it through there. In terms of height, we've heard that you know, some of the sailboats, apparently there's a sailboat that comes through there once or twice a year that has a 110-foot high mast. So that's probably the kind of height we'd be looking at, which is pretty significant. You know, we were kind of thinking 100 feet when we started, but we've heard, you know, there's one with a bigger mast. So 100 feet is pretty significant. And probably up where the hydro wires are. Any other questions?
You talked about the hydro wires, that's the fixed bridge. It would have to be as high as the hydro wires, right? And
Yeah.
then down, gradually up and then gradually down.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we assume the hydro wires are that, you know, that height. They must have put them at that height for a reason. We haven't found out, we haven't been able to find any documentation as to why they set them at that height. But we're kind of assuming that, you know, we would have to at least maintain that height so that you could maintain the existing boats going through there.
Is there a standard height for boat traffic when you travel the streets or in a like a bridge area?
Yeah, there's no standard height. You know, it's up to us as part of this study to try and determine who's using it, and to, you know, we'd have to accommodate the existing users. So it's Transport Canada that actually kind of governs navigational waterways. So we would have to satisfy Transport Canada that we, you know, can accommodate the boat traffic. So
Depending on what kind of ships come through that strait there, where
Yeah.
the swing bridge is now.
yeah.
I think the boat you're talking about is probably the biggest ship that comes through that area to come on, you know, through the
Yeah.
current
Yeah.
port.
Yeah, 110 feet is pretty high. Can't imagine there being many boats taller than that.
Let's say about 20 years from now, and the size cruise ships that are going to be coming through there,
Yeah,
that's something that's got to be looked at too.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard to predict the future. I mean, right now, because it's a swing bridge, there's really no vertical limit. You know, it's really just kind of the width that's kind of governing what can go through there now. So ideally, we'd not restrict anything vertically, so that we're, you know, we're not impeding.
The folks that are viewing that method, where they can find the information, the website again, and to fill out the questionnaire when they get time or something. So I think that's important. Because there's like 3,000, I believe it's 3,000 non-reserve here in the community. And it's it is the largest First Nation in the territory.
Yeah, that's a good point. Probably the best thing to do is to, we can zoom in on that, the last slide there. So the last slide provides the website address for this study. That's probably the most important piece of information. So www.swingbridge.ca. That project website has all of these boards posted on the website. So all of the information that was presented here tonight is available on the project website. And then probably the easiest way to submit comments is through that website. There's a link that sends your comments to the project email, which is projectteam@swingbridgestudy.ca. So we certainly encourage everybody to visit the website, review the materials online, and then provide comments to the study. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up there. We will stick around if you have any other questions. You're certainly welcome to come up to see the boards a little bit closer. There's probably still more food there if you'd like something else to eat.
I have one more question. You know, you've heard of the Channel Tunnel in the English Channel in the UK?
Right, channel.
The channel, yeah.
Yeah.
And this one here, what is that? Not even a quarter mile? I mean, the distance from the mainland to Goat Island. What is that about? Not even
Yeah, I think it's about 300 feet or so. Yeah, so it's not a long process.
Yeah. So the 1, 2, 3, what is that, the tunnel? If they want to build a tunnel under there and come out on the other side, that would be
Yeah.
feasible too, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, the challenge is you have to get pretty deep. So again, we need to do more work on the engineering side, but we've looked at the geology and the type of rock. And because of the type of rock, we think probably the tunnel, the top of the tunnel needs to be about 10 meters below the bottom of the channel. So it's getting fairly deep. So the challenge is getting down and then back up and providing those approach grades. So that's a bit of the challenge. So we are looking a little closer at the geology and to determine if we can, decrease the amount of that depth a little bit. But
Yeah.
that's part of the engineering work.
It was just a thought on, just for conversation and an idea, I mean, because that one, the tunnel it's almost, what, 45 kilometers long, underground.
Yeah.
And this one's only, not even a quarter mile, like you said, 500 yards.
Yeah.
And that one cost 21 billion to build. How much would that cost, just like 500 yards to go underground?
Yeah. This one, based on our preliminary numbers, we were thinking 250 to 300 million.
To go underground. That's just an estimate.
That's just an estimate, yeah. Compared to, for a high-level bridge, probably, around 100, between 50 and 100 million. And then a movable bridge would be in 25 to 50 million dollar range.
So you have all those quotes and estimates for each category, sort of thing.
Yeah, those are high-level
Estimates.
So we'll further refine those, and based on some of the engineering work we're doing.
Okay, a friend of mine asked me to ask a question here. He can't make it, but he asked the funding that you guys get to do this for navigation for borders. Where does your funding come from? Is it navigational waters and government or something like that, or what's the funding called?
Well, for the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bridge is owned by the Ministry of Transportation. So the Ministry of Transportation would be funding the project. So
The Ministry of Transportation, MTO.
MTO.
Has nothing to do with the fisheries or the water area? Okay. And this question wouldn't fit the question.
Yeah. Any comment any more on funding? I mean,
Funding, well, there's two brackets with funding highway infrastructure projects. There's the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines and Forestry. So for this project, it would be under the MNDMF pocket of money. And it has nothing to do with the Department of Fisheries or like a federal, I don't know what it's. No, yeah, it has nothing to do with the federal part of the funding at all. So it's just mainly like the Ministry of Transportation.
so all provincial funding.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll do this again. Next, I guess it'll be next summerish. When we come back with more detailed alternative. Thank you everyone.
The tunnel, yeah, that's what it's called. Tunnel.
no. Det är inte det någon. Agree if you make a bridge across the learning from off. Really, this is big. We need a big learning.
También quedamos con una orden de cargo, no.
Ska jag kunna gå på till sig och det går saken där. De kan. Ja. De var på gymnasiet.